taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of Joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel V. Hill.
What's up, guys? Not Rachel V. Hill. I am Dante Gomez in for her while she's on vacation. We are joined by NFL reporter James Palmer. How are you doing today, James?
Busy day, but you know, when one of the biggest trades in the NFL in recent memory goes down, you keep grinding. Let's go.
Yeah, hey, who doesn't love waking up to some breaking, or not waking up, but some breaking news in the morning?
Waking up? How late are you sleeping in?
Well, that's why I fixed it.
Okay.
You know, waking up in terms of in the first, 4 hours of the morning. But let's dive into it. Davante Adams traded to the New York Jets. Kind of feels like everyone is expecting it at this point over the last couple of days / weeks. We touched on it a couple weeks ago when you were on the show as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see this as kind of a fire sale for the Raiders? Do you expect more trades to follow, or was it just kind of a one-off with an unhappy player?
I think it can be both at the same time, honestly. I mean, this thing with Davante and the Raiders has been going on for over a year. He's kind of been 1 foot in, 1 foot out for some time. There's been a variety of things that have led to this. The Netflix series was one of them that rubbed some people in the building the wrong way, some people in the locker room the wrong way. You know, you had training camp where 3 different guys had babies. I believe they didn't have them. I believe their significant others did, but 2 of them missed a day, and Davante missed 2 weeks. And then you had the quarterback situation, which, to my understanding, Davante liked playing with Aiden O'Connell a lot more than he liked playing with Gardner Minshew. And in a race that was that close, why don't you go with the one your star receiver wants to play with? But they didn't. And so there's all these different things leading into it. The Raiders were, very aggressive in moving him. He wasn't going to play there. That was kind of like that's a gamesmanship during negotiations, man, like during, like on Sunday it comes out, they may keep him. They were never planning on keeping him. But they got roughly what they wanted. You know what I mean? In terms of, they didn't have to pay any of the salary. The Jets take all that on. They got the 3rd conditional to a 2. We'll see if it becomes a 2. But in terms of the Raiders being, in a fire sale mode, I think they are in a rebuild. I don't know about a fire sale. Like a player that everybody probably has their eye on is Max Crosby right now, right? There's definitely some teams that have some edge rush and some pass rush needs. The Lions come to mind, Falcons, different teams. He's 27 years old. If your rebuild is quick, like say the Commanders or the Texans, I mean, he's 29 by the time you're back rolling. Like, I don't know if you want that guy out of the building. He's one of the best defensive players in football. So I don't know if it's a fire sale. It might be we got to unload some salaries. Davante was never going to play there past this year anyways. So I think it's more the player than a fire sale, but we're going to have to keep an eye on, man. They got some new ownership, fresh blood coming in there, right? You got Tom Brady with a say, apparently, to my understanding, is going to be something he has in that building. But yeah, right now, I don't know if it's essentially a fire sale, but they're regrouping for sure.
Okay, well, you mentioned Max Crosby there. I mean, who wouldn't love to have Max Crosby on a different team?
Everybody should.
Do you see it as a move in terms of, you called it a rebuild, in terms of like tanking for the season? Are they kind of punting on the season? Or do you think, I mean, Antonio Pierce doesn't seem like the type that would go for that kind of thing, but do you think it's kind of an ownership and kind of over his head, similar to the way we saw with the Dolphins a couple of years ago, where the coach and the players were all trying to win, but the GM and the ownership wasn't exactly putting them in the best position to do so? Do you see it as following kind of in the Dolphins' footsteps?
It's tough in this league, right, man? You got a lot of guys that's livelihoods are in that locker room. You're going through it in Cleveland right now, where decisions made by the people that are above the players in the locker room get scrutinized pretty heavily by those guys in the room, when it's going, you're not looking out for me by any stretch. I don't care about your plan. Most players around this league don't care about your team's 2-3 year plan. They care about this year. And I know Antonio Pierce feels that way as well. Now, can that be somewhat sabotaged by a general manager and ownership? Of course, in some capacity. I mean, you could say right now, like, we got to take a look at a lot of our young guys as we're looking to, rebuild this thing. Is Aiden O'Connell part of that? Okay, we're going to play him the rest of the way out. We know what type of player Gardner Minshew is. And so, like, those little things can happen for sure. They were really aggressive in wanting to go after a quarterback this past draft. They tried to move up. They had a lot of interest in Jaden Daniels. A lot of people will say they had a lot of interest in Jaden Daniels with the way he's playing right now, but they did. I think they had some interest in moving up. So, yeah, I think they need a quarterback. They know that. And does that involve trying to skew things into your favor to have that happen? We'll see, but nobody will ever admit something like that.
Yeah, no, they never said it out loud, but sometimes your actions can speak out loud for you. We have seen actually local guy here, Shadur Sanders, hanging out with
Mark Davis, yeah,
Raiders ownership there. So we could see Shadur go from the black and gold to the black and silver next year, which would be kind of a fun story for people around here to be, rooting for him one year and then not doing so much.
Scram, yeah.
But hey, let's move on to the Broncos here. Lose a tough one at home against the Chargers. Back to 3-3, 500 football team. Do you see this team as a 500 football team? Or I guess you can't anymore, but a 8-9, 9-8 team by the end of the year?
I think they'd be happy to get there. I really do. I mean, you got to remember, I think this 3-game win streak, in all honesty, I don't want to sound like the Debbie Downer on here, but I think this 3-game win streak really skewed people's opinions of, where this team actually stands in terms of talent. Before the season started, do you think they get 5 wins? They go on a 3-game win streak. Now we're all like, this is a playoff team. Those were not the prettiest of games. Let's go through them. You play a Tampa Bay Bucks team that played the Lions the previous week. They beat the Lions, and the Bucks are a good team. You know what's happened to every team the week they've played a game after they played the Lions? They've lost.
Oh, yeah, they get smoked.
Every single team gets smoked. The Lions are as physical as you can play, and that's what the Broncos ran into. They ran into a team that just played the Lions, and that has happened to every single team. The Jets game was just like, what was that game, right? Complete. Your quarterback throws for negative, 7 yards or 6 yards, whatever it was in the first half. I don't think that's like tremendous football. And then, you kind of sense that the Raiders situation was coming to an end. There's a lot going on in a dysfunctional organization right there. You played pretty well. Pat Surtain had a really good, really impactful play to change the course of that game. And I think everybody's going like, this is a playoff team. This is one of the worst offenses in football. It is. And so the defense has been outstanding. Let's see if that can continue. But if they can get to 500 in Bo Nix's rookie season and learn a lot about him as a quarterback, I'd take it. Wouldn't you take a 500 season?
Oh, absolutely. The win total, like you mentioned, 5.5 games. So they were supposed to win 5 or 6 games. That's a huge step in the right direction. So if you surpass expectations, get to 8 or 9 wins, I think. Again, I think maybe after the 3-game win streak, people aren't going to be too excited about that. But I think if before the year you ask people, people would definitely take that ahead of time. Mm-hmm. We got the Colts and the Chargers also at 3 wins in the AFC. Do you kind of see the Broncos on par with both of those franchises and where they're at and where they're going at the moment?
It's the Colts and Chargers.
Yeah.
I think the Chargers are better than the Broncos. I think we saw that this past week, right? I think the Chargers are definitely better. They have a premier quarterback. That is a premier quarterback in this league. Skill position wise, there's definitely some questions. You let Keenan Allen leave, you let Mike Williams leave, like Quentin Johnston and Ladd McConkey, and I love the story of J.K. Dobbins bouncing back, but there's still questions with injuries. But they have 2 great tackles. That's a really good defense. Jesse Minter is going to start being a name. More people around the league are going to start hearing the guy who runs their defense. They're a better team. I don't know if the Colts are a better team than the Broncos. I don't know. And the Broncos have fewer questions at the quarterback spot for sure than the Colts do. Anthony Richardson has shown flashes. He just can't stay on the field. And they're going to go back to him. Now, if it was Joe Cool every week, who knows? But no, I think they're sandwiched between those two. And yeah, I think they're right in that bunch. They're not like exponentially worse than anybody else in that group, but I think the Chargers are definitely better than the Broncos right now.
Okay, so it sounds kind of like they're at where they should be.
Yeah,
in terms
I think so.
The AFC be realistic. Standings. Yeah. Yeah. No. Well, hey, I'm all for being realistic. I don't know about everyone else. And then let's move on to Bo Nix. We talked about that. The question marks surrounding him. We saw 6 weeks in at this point. A lot of people around here are kind of claiming him as a garbage time quarterback at this point, where he puts up a lot of his stats. Broncos went on to score 16 points in that fourth quarter where they're already down 23-0. Do you see it that way, that it is mostly garbage time stats, or do you see any flashes when it's actually a competitive game? And is that something that they can continue, that if they are in a competitive game, he will be able to, perform?
You're talking about Bo? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Bo Nix.
I'm like tagging somebody. I think Amari Cooper's getting traded, so I'm trying to
Wow. We
work
got
on
breaking
that.
news for us, or
right
still in the
now.
works?
But we'll see. Yeah. So, listen. They need to start games better. They need to have a better 15 coming out of the gate. I think we've seen Bo has a lot of competitiveness to him. He's got a lot of juice to him. I talked to some people with the Chargers that were really impressed with him in the fourth quarter, kind of the fight he brings, the ability to, I'm trying to get this confirmed with Amari Cooper. I think it's happening.
Well, whenever you do, I'd love to break it here. So go ahead.
Let's see.
Go ahead and share it whenever that is confirmed on your end.
Let me see here. This is like behind the curtain here.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I remember. I think Adam Schefter broke some big trade on Scott.
Oh, really?
Phillips. So I feel like this is pretty similar to that situation.
Yeah. And so, I think that's happening. Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much happening.
Do you want to share, or do you want to?
I think the Bills have been looking for a receiver. They were in on Davante to some extent. They need a guy on the outside, and that's a big deal. When he's playing off schedule, we got to remember that is garbage time. The defense is playing a little bit differently. I think it is a showcase of he's comfortable in chaos a little bit, which I think is a positive for sure. And then, it's happening. And then, you just got to find a way to utilize those traits throughout the course of the game. Is it more RPOs? Is it more, ability to hold, I look back at Jalen Hurts in the year that he was very successful, and the ability to just kind of have the threat of those legs consistently through a game to aid into making life easier on you as a quarterback. And I think they're still trying to feel things out. And I think it's something they need to build on and utilize some of the traits they're seeing in quote unquote garbage time, and get those successful throughout the rest of the game. And I think running the football obviously helps that. Play action then plays off of that. And there's just other aspects of the offense that are not helping in terms of finding some success for Bo. Yeah, this is happening.
Okay, awesome. Hey, we got breaking news here on Coffee Break. You mentioned his legs. He ran for 61 yards last year, 9 and 3 the 2 weeks prior, and then 47 and 25 the 2 weeks prior to that. Do you see them incorporating more of some of those RPOs or designed runs for him, or do you think they'll keep it to kind of those scrambles and run when you have to, not necessarily run when we want to?
Well, can I just tweet this out real quick?
Yeah, go for it. I'll give you some time here.
No, go ahead.
So like I said, the Broncos seem to run him a little bit more, whether it was designed or scrambled. Do you see that being part of the game plan going forward here?
Yeah, I think it has to be, right? I mean, you have to utilize your quarterback strengths. One of the biggest things that you need to do is play to your quarterback strengths. I mean, I think that's absolutely huge. And so finding ways, and I think that's still a feeling out process. Like I did the game. This is a perfect example. Jaden Daniels is playing out of his mind right now, right? And he's playing awesome. I did their game this past week against Baltimore. Talking to Cliff Kingsbury, he's like, I'm still trying to figure out Jaden. Like, we're still trying to figure out, what I can do with him, how creative we can be with this offense. That's a perfect example of things are going really, really well, and he still doesn't really know everything about his quarterback because it's brand new between play caller and a rookie quarterback. The same thing's happening in Denver. It's just like the success that's happening with Jaden isn't essentially there with the group that Denver has just yet. But the behind the scenes, figuring out what works, figuring out the strengths, figuring out the things to play off of, all while trying to improve the offense, it's a feeling out process. I mean, this first quarter of the season, almost everybody in the league treats it as we're finding out who we are. And then the next, 4 games, which the Broncos are now in with the rest of the league, is like driving that home. Okay, this is now who we are. So like they're just in that process of still figuring out exactly what they can do with Bo Nix. Yes, they have a great idea of what he can do, but within your offense and what you start learning and seeing about him, Yeah, you're figuring out all of these things. You don't want to lean on too many things that you think are his strengths, but again, you're still trying to figure all of it out. And I'm going to give Sean Payton and the staff a little bit of the benefit of the doubt that they're figuring things out with their quarterback, with a group of skill players that, I mean, it's not murderer's row out there in terms of talent. Let's be entirely honest. You have Cortland Sutton who can make plays. Outside of that, like, who else is really giving you plays? That's hard on a young quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, the void of skill position players that the Broncos have on the roster isn't exactly what other teams around the NFL are grabbing at in terms of like, oh, we could get that guy potentially. We did see Devon Vele have a nice little game here, especially in that fourth quarter. He was inactive the last couple of weeks. I believe he had an injury at some point as well. Do you see Devon Vele being a bigger part of this offense in the next 4 games here?
Yeah, I think I'd try anything. Honestly, you're searching for who's going to give you explosive plays, who's going to give you consistent targets, who's going to start building chemistry with your young quarterback. I mean, he flashed in camp for a reason. I mean, there were definitely plays out there that he made for a reason. I mean, he doesn't really play the position like a rookie. I mean, I remember talking to defensive backs in training camp. I had a conversation with Jaquan McMillan, who was like, his releases are releases like a veteran. Now, he's an older rookie, so it makes a little bit of sense. But he's like, he is as smooth as it comes for a big guy. He can get off the line of scrimmage. Let's see if he can build chemistry with your young quarterback. I would start trying to look to see if there's some different things that you can do with him and moving pieces around in your receiving core. Because honestly, why not right now? Right? Like, why not try to find some of those things? You're seeing that in Troy Franklin. Are his snaps going up? Yeah, they are. Let's see if some of these young guys can play. I think that's the type of season that you're in.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would love to see a little more Vele mixed in there. Even though he is a older rookie, seems like he's producing more than a lot of the other receivers not named Cortland Sutton, or even named Cortland Sutton on some of these Sundays. You mentioned Jaquan McMillan. Let's move on to the Broncos defense. Patrick Surtain goes out very early in the game. We heard from Mike Kliss on our radio station earlier that he's not expecting him to play on Thursday. Just thinks it's too quick of a turnaround as far as concussion protocol. What do you make of the Broncos defense without, some people's defensive player of the year at this point, Patrick Surtain?
Yeah, I think what ended up happening when he was off the field, it might have helped his case at going after that award, right? I mean, the way they played without him was night and day. And so much of what they do revolves around a corner, which is not normal in this league, but there's not a lot of players that can do what Pat can do. He's not expected to play in this game, to my understanding. The guy he would probably be matched up against as he shadows number ones would be Chris Olave. He's not expected to play in this game either. So that's a little bit of help. I mean, Rashid's probably not going to play in this game either. So, I mean, they could be without their top 2 wide receivers, which also, plays in favor of the Broncos. But like, you understand, like, your offense or defense are built around your best player, and then you build off of that. And then what else, when you lose them, what else happens? You lose the kind of the face of your defense and kind of the cornerstone of it. Then J-Mac has to slide outside. And now you lose the interior guy who's really good at playing the nickel spot and playing on the interior corner spot. Now you're weaker there and you're weaker there. And then there's this domino effect that ends up happening within your offense, within your defense, that ends up hurting you. So, it's definitely a difficult situation to deal with without playing with Surtain. But I think as banged up as this Saints offense is on the offensive line, multiple injuries on the receiver spot, injuries, skill guys, injuries, like, I think it's going to be pretty evenly matched, in all honesty. And I think you got a young quarterback in Rattler that maybe this is, a short week in New Orleans. Obviously, you want him, but with the way the Saints are banged up, it may not be the worst week that you don't have Patrick Surtain.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, Saints also injured, like you mentioned. Let's move on to the Saints real quick as we finish up. We also saw Riley Moss and Macmillan.
You gotta say Macmillan, yeah.
Macmillan, of course. On the injury report, is there a concern at the depth for the cornerbacks in terms of, like, hey, I know Spencer Rattler's only a rookie, but he did put up some points there against Tampa Bay, who is, no slouch on defense either. If the Broncos are down a couple corners, is that something that you think Spencer Rattler could take advantage of?
Yeah, if he has time to throw, I think the defensive line needs to show out in this game. I think big time. I think Spencer Rattler, they moved him around, booted him outside the pocket a little bit. I think the world of Clint Kubiak as an offensive mind. I think they were really rolling early, but they're so thin on that offensive line. The group up front needs to help you out. If you're thin on your back end, for sure, and they might be, you need to get home quick. You need to get home really quick. And I think New Orleans is dealing with injuries on a greater case than maybe anybody else in football right now. And so that plays into your favor. But if you can get pressure on a young quarterback early, that's probably the best case scenario for you if you're banged up on your secondary a little bit. But yeah, it's a short week. It's definitely a difficult one to come around to. But a lot of times if guys are close, I'll say this, they try to go because they know they have essentially like a mini bye the next week. And if you're tight and you can maybe get a chance to go, you try to give it a chance. But like the group up front, I think is going to be the one that determines this game. And if they win the trenches against New Orleans, I think they win this game. And specifically with their defensive line, wreaking havoc, they have the ability to do that. And you got to do that specifically if you're going to be a little bit weaker on the backside.
Yeah, hey, well, let's finish up with your prediction for Thursday. Do you see the Broncos pulling it off there in Sean Payton's homecoming?
I do actually. I really do. I just think I think we kind of know that Sean Payton kind of smells blood in the water a little bit and what's going on down there, and the way that New Orleans, we mentioned the injuries are almost too much right now with what's going on. Now, is that place going to be crazy? Is it going to be loud? I think the Broncos win, and I think what they have to do is they have to get out of the gates quicker than they have been and take that crowd out. I mean, that is a wild place to play a football game. I love covering games there, but if you can take that crowd out a little bit early, I think that plays to their favor. Look for possibly being one of these games where Sean, if he wins the toss, he takes the ball. And maybe you try to get out to a quick start, but I do think they come out on top.
Okay, yeah, Sean being maybe a little
he did it in
aggressive
Tampa, right?
there. He did do it in Tampa when they were looking for a little switch up. So
Yeah.
I'd love to see it. I like the aggressive nature of Sean Payton and maybe him trying to get the ball, get out early. Do you think Sean has any extra motivation? I mean, I don't think he'd ever say it out loud, but yeah, of course, right? He's got to have a little something. There hasn't really been too many stories about like a bad ending in terms of why he ended up leaving the Saints. But it still feels like, he wants to, shove it in anybody's face he can.
Do you know Sean? I mean, yeah, like that. I mean, any guy going back to where they were previously wants to win, and they want to win bad. I mean, it's pretty clear, and I think that is the way Sean's wired. And I think this game would mean a lot to him. I really do. I mean, that's a long time he was there. And so, yeah, I don't think you want to go in there. And you're going against an opposing head coach that coached with you for a number of years. And so, like, yeah, there's a lot of things that line up for sure. And I definitely think this is not going to be a sweet homecoming for Sean, and it shouldn't be. It's not the way it is really anywhere until maybe the game's over. You know what I mean? You don't usually see that. So, of course, yeah, that's the way he's wired, and I can see him actually having a little incentive to. We'll see how the second half of the game goes with some of his decision making.
Oh, like running up the scores?
I don't know. We'll see I think we'll see what happens. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, I'm looking forward to. We got Broncos Saints Thursday night. We'll have James Palmer on next Tuesday as well to review that game.
And then we can being distracted. Yeah.
Oh, hey, no, you're all good, man. You got breaking news to break. So I appreciate you breaking it on the show as well.
I'll try my best. Yeah.
But yeah, James will be back next Tuesday, and we will take a look at the Saints game and then preview their week 8 matchup at that point. Yes, I know. Flying by.
Moving.
Well, hey, I appreciate you joining, though, James. Have a great one.
You too. Take it easy.
All right, everyone. Thank you for listening. We'll be back tomorrow at noon. Jake Shapiro will be on with us as we talk all things Denver sports.